Hello, folks. Welcome to today's episode, Tuesday's episode of Talking Bible with me, Rohan Bell, and Jeanie Schwartz again.
Back again, yeah.
Back again. Hello, Jeanie. Talking about one of Jesus' prayers of gratitude, thanksgiving to the Father. This is different, isn't it?
Yes, very different to yesterday's
Yes.
episode.
I think this is a little bit less challenging than yesterday's episode, more encouraging. That's
Oh,
how
do
I would
you?
view. Yeah, I think so.
Oh, really? Because I have a problem with the word in this.
Okay, we'll go there.
Yeah.
So we're in Matthew 11 and Luke 10. Is that right?
Yes, Matthew 11, 25 to 30, Luke 10, 21 to 24.
So just 3 or 4 verses.
Yes.
Something like that. Okay. Where are we going to go?
All right, I'll read Matthew.
Okay, over to you, Matt.
For you. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and revealed them to infants. I mean, what the heck is that? Okay, I'll just keep reading.
Yep.
Yes, Father, because this was your good pleasure to hide things from the wise and intelligent. Doesn't make any sense.
See.
All things have been entrusted to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son desires to reveal him. A lot of father-son talk there. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my, and this is the word I have a problem with, yoke upon you, and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Okay. Yoke you have a problem with.
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
It sounds pretty horrible. I don't want to be yoked
You
to
don't want to be
anything.
yoked to anything.
I want to be free, a free spirit to do as I want.
Yes. Good luck with that.
Well, it's been working so far.
Has it? Has it really? Oh, good question. This is a really good point.
It just sounds like a heavy burden to bear. Like I am pulling a heavy cross with Christ hanging on that cross.
Right. Okay. Well, let's put it in its context. Let's start with the fact that everyone in life carries a yoke. No matter how much we don't think we are, we will. So the whole, I want to do whatever I want to do. I'm going to please myself. Just stop, folks, and think about that. Think about the people you know who try to live that way.
Sorry, can you just point out the yoke? Because I don't know
how about the
exactly
yoke
what you
of
mean there.
Finding yourself always comparing yourself with other people?
That's just Instagram.
Exactly. But these are people who are trying to live free, saying, we live free and easy and life is easy and I can do whatever I want, when I want, with who I want, how I want. In reality, that is not actually ever possible.
How?
Well,
Why not?
I don't know anyone who's ever done that successfully. They end up serving someone. They'll serve money. They'll serve ego. They'll serve insecurity. They'll serve keeping up with other people. They'll serve performance or trying to achieve at the highest level because I don't feel good enough about myself. It's impossible for any broken human to ever live that way. It's a lie from the pit of hell that thinks that we can live that way, free from any yokes. I don't know anyone. Do you?
I haven't thought enough about it.
It's impossible, in my opinion. And this isn't just Christian speak. I mean, you talk to any psychologist or any philosopher, they'll tell you that.
But sorry, go on. I'm interested in what the philosopher says.
Well, I think you'd find that anybody is going to say in life you're going to have to serve something. It's impossible to live in life without serving something. And even if you've got heaps of servants of your own, you're still going to be serving the need for more power or control or anger or it's just impossible.
But who necessarily says that's a bad thing?
To live serving someone?
Yeah, well, wanting more power in my job, per se.
Because it controls us. So when we live that way of thinking we are going to control our lives or we're going to dominate others, we end up being the slave ourselves because we will be a slave to something else. I'm going to get to the top on the ladder in my workplace and be the most successful or the richest or the strongest or the most influential person in my workplace. You will end up serving greed to get there because you won't get there without trampling on people. You'll start to serve bitterness, anger towards others, self-judgmentalism. It will cripple and poison your soul.
So what you're saying is that inherently there is our human nature is on the negative side of things.
Yes, you should have just said it rather than me trying to say it.
Yeah.
Exactly right. It's impossible. It's a broken human spirit.
Broken human spirit.
Yeah.
But most people I meet don't sort of think they have a broken
No.
spirit.
No, until they get to the point where they realize that
They end up in rehab.
Exactly, yeah, that's my point. And something will happen in their life where they'll realize that this, I don't like, Jill always tells me off for using the term because it's kind of derogatory to the people who actually did it, but drinking the Kool-Aid, where they actually got to that point where they believed something that was a complete lie. And they'll get to that point where they think the lie is you can be the number one, you can be free, you can live for yourself, you can please yourself, only to find that when they get there, they've left destruction behind them. Their relationships have been destroyed. They're not happy.
So you're not specifically talking about Jonestown right now. You're just speaking
I'm not speaking about Jonestown. I'm talking about the human condition. Okay. Yes, exactly. Right. Just to clarify that. So I'm not speaking just about Jonestown. I'm talking about the fact that that metaphor has extended into life, and it is a life metaphor that we all do. We all believe a lie. We all will swallow something that tells us that we can be a free person when we can't. And Jesus is talking, let's bring it back to the context of what Jesus is saying. He's talking to people who were ordinary, unschooled fishermen, basic low-level tradies, just people who were just getting by. There's no such thing as a low-level tradie anymore, I don't think. But,
do you know how much money tradies earn here, by the way?
Not so much. Not so much. Very much different in that day. Ordinary people who were just getting by, who knew what it was not to be free. They definitely recognized they served high taxes to the Romans. They served high taxes to the temple. They were controlled in every way. Jesus was talking to those people. And here he is making it really clear when he says this, that that's the people God loves, God reveals himself to. Meanwhile, those who think they are free aren't. You will not be free. And that's the point that Jesus is trying to make here.
So he's saying, my yoke is actually less of a burden than living without it.
Yes. Here's what Jesus is saying. Hey guys, you're going to have to serve someone. So who are you going to serve? That's really what he's saying. You cannot go through life without serving anybody because of sin. You'll serve sin. Paul will pick this up, and we've talked about this at length in the book of Romans. Paul says we're all a slave to sin. So he says you're going to have to serve sin. And let me tell you something. When you think you're living free, you're serving sin. And it is a much worse yoke, a much heavier, burdensome yoke than my yoke. And then he contrasts it. He says, yeah, you've got to choose which yoke you're going to put around your head. But if you put my yoke around my head, let me tell you, it's gentle, it's easy, it's light. It'll give you rest.
So yoke is associated with rest?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? How could a yoke be associated with rest?
I don't know.
Well, let's talk about what a yoke is.
You tell me.
So let's talk about what a yoke is, for those that might not know. Yoke's the big wooden thing that you put around a plow animal, like a donkey or a mule or
a big bull.
A bull, yep. Put it around their neck to
an ox.
plow. An ox, even. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So to plow. So that doesn't sound like rest, does it?
No, it does not.
No. And so Jesus was saying we all have our heads in yokes, and these guys understood it. The irony of today is that many people think they don't have their head in the yoke, only to find later on down the track that they've had their head in a yoke that has messed up their family or their life or their finances or their relationships or whatever. We all have our head in a yoke. So Jesus says, which yoke do you want to put your head in? And he contrasts it. This is how I picture it. Jesus is saying, if you put your head in a yoke that you think is going to bring you freedom, you're yoking yourself to your sinful nature. And your sinful nature will just eke every bit of life out of you.
Okay.
You will do all the work.
If I yoke myself to myself, sounds so funny.
Yes.
I will what?
If I yoke myself to my sinful nature, it will suck the life out of me. When I think I'm pleasing myself, it will destroy my life. So if you imagine here's Jeanie, the Jeanie that you want to be, the Jeanie that you should be, and the sinful Jeanie, the flesh Jeanie, in a yoke side by side, which one's doing all the work? And Jesus would say, actually, the one you want to be, that is being sucked out of you by the other one that's just going along for a free ride, feeding you, eating you on the inside. But Jesus says...
Oh, it sounds like the sinful one is stronger.
The sinful one is stronger, but it's lazier.
Okay.
It's stronger, but it's not doing the work.
Right.
It's making...
Good way to point that out.
It's making you do the work. It's just going along for a free ride, seeking energy, pulling energy out of the Jeanie that you want to be because of its desires for the flesh. But Jesus says, okay, you've got a different choice. You can do that. You can yoke yourself to your sinful nature, or you can yoke yourself to me. Put your head in my yoke, And Jesus, when he's saying, put your head in my yoke, he's saying, I've got my head in the yoke. I'm not the plower at the back that's getting you to do all the work. I'm putting my head in the yoke. So when Jeanie, that you want to be, is now yoking yourself beside Jesus, Jesus, instead of sapping the life out of you, is giving you his life. In fact, he's doing the work for you. And you get a free ride. That's why you can say you get rest. It's easy to have your head in a yoke beside Jesus because Jesus does all the work.
Okay, just clarify. Me as sinful Jeanie,
Yes.
sinful nature, what are my characteristics? Don't be personal.
Don't be
You don't have
personal
to
about
say so much about me.
Don't be personal
But-
about it. Okay.
Okay.
Let me tell you what Paul says it is.
Okay, go for it.
Paul says it's this. This is what the Paul says this sinful nature is. He says in Galatians 5, verse 17, the sinful nature wants to do evil, which is the opposite of what your spirit, your good Jeanie, wants to do.
I'm not sure I want to do evil, but I'll let you
Well,
do that.
let's
Yeah,
go. He
okay.
says, and the spirit gives us desires that are opposite of what our sinful nature desires. There's this contrast. These two forces are constantly fighting each other. You're not free to carry out your good intentions, but when you are directed by the law of the Spirit, you will not be under the law of those. And he says, when you follow the desires of your sinful nature, when you get your head in that yoke, the results are very clear. So he's going to go straight to results. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, division, enviness, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these, as if that's not an inclusive list.
Well, they'll certainly give you wild parties.
Wild parties.
I've spent a lot of time in Vegas.
Yeah. Yes.
But so compare that, my sinful nature, our sinful nature, to Jesus. Who am I yoked to? What's his nature?
The yoke. Oh, there we go. So Jesus would say, Paul would say, on the contrast, I'll just skip ahead of my chapters. On the contrast, when you yoke yourself to Jesus, the evidence is opposite. It is the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace,
Wait, so
patience.
he is love.
He is love.
Is love.
He is joy. He is peace. Because this is the Holy Spirit's fruit in us. So when we yoke ourselves to Jesus, we get a free ride. It's not work. It's not striving and struggling, but the result of the fruit that comes in our life is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And I don't know about you, I think that's a picture of a more light and easy and restful life.
Yeah, I can see that. I'm still just stuck on the characteristics of Jesus. If Jesus is love, God is love, and love is, according to 1 Corinthians, love is kind, patient.
Yes,
what
all
else?
of them.
All of those?
Galatians, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness.
Okay, so
Yep.
that is the difference that I need in my
Yes.
life.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yes.
Why wouldn't I want to be yoked
Why
to
wouldn't
that?
you want to be yoked to that? Because you're going to have to serve something. But you see, the world's message says, oh, no, you do that, you can't live for yourself. You got to give up what you want. You've got to really, you're going to have to put yourself out. You should look after yourself, Jeanie. You shouldn't listen to you. You don't need to.
So
You don't need to love your
seductive.
husband. You don't need to take care of your kids. You just look after. You just do you. You do you. That's the message of the world. That's the message of social media. But my point I'm making here, which I think Jesus is making, is that in the end, that is leading to destruction. It is. He says elsewhere, wide is the pathway that leads to destruction, and narrow is the pathway that leads to life, and few will find it. So I think the invitation here is to take the narrow path, because that's where you'll find the ultimate joy. And that will require denying self. It actually means giving up the things that your sinful nature tells you will make you happy, because they're lying to you. But Jesus is not lying. He's a good God, and he says, yes, give up those things, but I'm going to give you something far, far better than what you're giving up.
And do you think he does give you something far,
Absolutely.
far better?
Absolutely.
You've actually, sorry, go on.
I was going to say we've gone right off track with we're only really dealing with the last verse in this whole passage.
But it's what I read. That's what sticks out to
It's
me.
what
And
stuck
it's
out to you.
always
The
stuck
yoke
out to me
stuck,
in
yep.
my life. Oh, this yoke that I've
Yes.
got to be under. But from this conversation, the childhood image that I always had of myself was me attached to a big bull.
Yes, okay.
Right? And there's me, this little girl, trying to get the bull to go where I want to go. And, it's just not working.
Yes.
It's very difficult. We have different needs, different wants. But if I use that same image and now I relax into it and say, oh, actually, the bull is going to do all of the work for me.
That's right.
And I am just going to get a nice ride and get all of the benefits.
Exactly.
That's a very different
That's
yoke.
a totally different yoke, and that's really important. That's what Jesus is saying.
Same yoke, different outcome, or different.
Yes, the physical yoke is different.
Yeah.
It's who's in the yoke with you that determines
Yeah.
the result. Yes.
It's a funny thing, but I just can't get over it.
Yeah, no, it's a really common one, because what you're drilling into here is a deep philosophical and theological and sociological issue about human life. We think that the best way to be happy is to live for ourselves. And Jesus is saying that is not the best way to be happy. That is a surefire way to end up with destruction in your life. It's a subtle but sinister lie of the evil one. You will not be like God. You'll know what's better. It started in Genesis 3. You'll know what's better. It's a sinister lie from the pit of hell. But the thing is, when we yoke ourselves to Jesus, when we choose to obey him and do it his way, it might feel limiting, but it actually enters into a much more expansive and fulfilling life. That's the message of the gospel right there.
It's crazy how, well, let me rephrase that. The fact that I'm being asked to be yoked to Jesus is remarkable in the sense that he wants to be yoked to me.
You're only going to be a drain on him.
Yes.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
Isn't it? I mean,
I can't plough this field.
You can't. You've got nothing to offer the field. We've got nothing to offer the field. It's his love that he says, hey, come jump in, have a ride. Let's go together. Let's hang out together.
And look, I see the love in this. I do. But I'm just going to take it back to the first sentence here, the other verse here, because when Jesus says, I praise you, Father, because you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent.
That's where I thought you were going to go.
Well, yeah, but I had to go there
to
the yoke first because that was on my mind.
Yep.
But hidden these things. I've had Jesus loving. He's giving me a restful yoke. But here he just seems really sneaky. Why would he hide anything from anybody?
Why would he hide it from the wise and learned? I think that's a figurative way of saying that their pride, their arrogance makes them blind to the truth. So it's less about God's sinister hiding and more about him going, okay, you've chosen, you think you know best. You think you know what's right for you. You think you know you're in the right yoke. You're actually in the wrong yoke. But you don't want it. I'm going to go and offer it to those who are looking for it, the ordinary, the plain.
To infants,
the infants, says. Yes, those that know nothing. And he's talking to ordinary folk, comparing them with the elite. And in this culture, whether it was serving rabbis or serving ancient philosophers or serving authorities, everyone's yoke was very harsh. It was taxing, it was exhausting and all that sort of stuff. And so Jesus is contrasting that and going, okay, I've got to do none of those people, they don't really want to put their head in my yoke. I'm going to go find those who do. And who is it? Well, it's the humble. It's the people who don't think they've got anything of value.
So that's what infants means, humble.
Infant means humble. It means, think about it. Infant doesn't know anything. So it's a person who is innocent, I suppose. It's a person who doesn't think they have it all together. Is dependent. The infants are dependent. There's another word.
The tax collectors and the prostitutes in yesterday's episode.
Exactly the point. The ordinary people who aren't self-reliant, aren't independent. Jesus can't work with independent people. And to agree, I think if we emphatically seek independence, Jesus will hide his truth from us. Not out of sinisterness, but more out of, okay, well, you don't want it? I'll go find someone who does. And that's kind of what I think he's meaning by hiding it.
All right.
We're choosing to be blind more than God hiding it as the first instance.
It also sort of says to me there are things to be discovered as you go along.
Digging in
this faith and this relationship with Christ.
Yep, for sure.
And another thing about the whole infant. Infants know they need help.
Yes.
Well, they pretend they think they don't.
Yes,
but it's not like they can reach the bottle of milk and the top layer of the fridge.
Yeah, they're totally dependent. That's the word dependent.
Dependent, yes.
Yeah, that's right. They are dependent on everyone else for life. They cannot live on their own. And that's what Jesus is looking for in us. That awareness that we cannot live on our own. But he's contrasting, saying the wise and learned, they think they have it all figured out, but they actually don't. And I'm looking for those that recognize their need of me.
Well, I certainly don't have it all figured out.
Well, that's a good place to be. It's better than thinking we do. And back to our conversation yesterday about, the religious crowds, the ones that say yes and don't do it, that's the risk. We all get to that point where we start to think we've got it figured out. And we go, oh, hang on a sec, I've got to remind myself, I'm just an infant. I need to behave like one.
There's this whole section here about the Father and Son and all of that. What is going on here? He says, all these things have been entrusted to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son. So is he saying that we will never really know God the Father? Only Jesus can know who God the Father is?
I think that's...
Oh, but it also
that's
says,
not what it's saying.
and anyone to whom the Son desires to reveal him.
Yeah. This is more of a radical claim in rebuke of those who claim to be sons of the Father, those who are the wise and learned, those who think they have it all figured out. And he's actually saying, no, you don't have it all figured out. There's actually one who has the relationship with the Father, and that's me. So it's a radical claim of Jesus' divinity, but it's also that claim of, but I don't want to keep this relationship for myself. I will give it to anyone. I will reveal the Father to anyone who acknowledges their dependence and gets their head in my yoke. They will discover the Father. But while you think you don't need me, you will not discover the Father, is what I think he's saying.
Does reveal sound like a instantaneous word to you? An instant action or over a long time?
I'd have to see in its original text because I can imagine a reveal happening quickly, like ta-da,
yes.
Or it could be happening slowly. I suspect it's a bit of both. We all have that moment where the light goes on and we go, I see Jesus. But then there's aspects of Jesus' life and truth and aspects of God's nature, which is what this scripture is saying. Jesus is revealing the Father to us that happen slowly.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's both.
Yeah, I think it's more both, but I'm going to lean more to a long burn.
A long burn.
Because if Jesus just suddenly appeared in front of me right now, I would be in awe. Like,
yes.
Who is this shiny white ghost figure with holes in his hands that apparently I can touch and he can walk through walls, since we talked about it on another episode. Yeah. Yet I wouldn't really know who he was. Yeah. I'd just be shocked with this
good point
character
he reveals
being
himself
before
over time.
me. Yes, but if I'm yoked with him and he takes all the heavy burden and slowly starts to give me his love, his the spirit of, what did you call it?
All the fruit of the Spirit.
All the fruit of the Spirit, yes.
That's,
and all
fruit,
those good
fruit
things.
takes time to grow.
Yes, all those good things that I don't have in my sinful nature. If we're slowly going on, walking through this plow, we're yoked together, it's then that I think his character is really going to be revealed to me.
Amen to that.
And maybe when I get to the end of the field and I turn around and I look and I think,
look how far I've come.
Look how far, but how far we have come.
We've come. Yep.
Because we've kind of done this life together.
Yes, that's right, exactly. And you look back and you think of all the stuff, the rocks in your life that have been ploughed out in that process. The soil looks much better at the end of the field than it does at the start of the field, but it's a slow process.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's a really good analogy for it.
And I'll probably see things that he did during the process that I had no idea about.
Yeah. And here's the thing, folks. You don't actually have to wait to get to the end to look back. I remember Stephen Furtick saying this years ago. You know, you can be halfway along the field, and we all to some degree are somewhere along that field if we're walking with Jesus. And we should be able to look back at any point and go, you know what, I can see some rocks that have come out of my life that they're not in front of me anymore. But you can look forward and say, hey, there's still some things to plow up, but I'm not where I want to be. I'm not at the end yet, but I'm not where I was. And that's that process. It should encourage us. So we'll all see things where we continue to fall short, where we continue to have rocks in the field that are blocking the fruit of the Spirit from growing. But I can look back at any given time and go, look where I've come from. Look what Jesus has gotten rid of. I used to be so much more angry as a person than I am now. I'm not perfect, but I'm not where I was. And then that encourages me to just get my head back in the yoke and keep walking with Jesus, because he is graciously bringing me, conforming me to his image as we have our head in the plows together.
I don't know about you, but any son of God that wants to be yoked to me is pretty impressive.
That's right. Absolutely. Yep. I know me. And the Lord is faithful. I'm sure everyone could say that. That's exactly right, Jeanie.
I have a lot to learn, a lot to think about on this.
Thank you. Oh, I do too. That was a good conversation.
Well, thank you.
I enjoyed that one.
See, it's the word yoked. It gets me every time.
Well, hopefully you'll never think about it differently. You never think about it the same now after that.
Yes, I have learnt from you. Thank you, pastor, teacher, Rohan.
I learned that lesson along from others. So I'm doing what Paul says, pass on to others what has been passed on to me. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you tomorrow.